Perfect. So now we can go back inside of this onSubmit function and add a pipe empty string here, because it's a possibility that this API URL has not been passed. Let's also pass in the query like that. And after that is done, let's go ahead and write axios.post like this. Instead of this, we're gonna add this newly generated URL using query string like this. And let's go ahead and spread the values like that and add content manually to be values.file URL like this. There we go. And let's just see. Okay, yes. Let's go ahead and rename the form schema image URL to file URL. And let's change the server image is required to attachment is required for a proper message. And let's also do the same thing in default values. We don't need the name. And let's change this to file URL. There we go. And now in here, we should no longer have this error for the content right here. And we no longer need the window.location.reload. Instead, we can call the onClose function, which we have right here, destructured from the use model. Perfect. And let's just go ahead and change this name to be file URL like this. Perfect. So let's go ahead and let's try that out now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select an image right here, which is my YouTube profile picture. And after I click send right here, let's see if it's going to close the model. So this would indicate that it is successful. So I'm going to refresh right here, and I sent a couple of messages, so don't get scared. I have a lot of messages, but there we go. This is my newest file, which uses the UploadThing and has a file URL here. So let me just go ahead and remove all of my messages. You don't have to do this, but I just want to demonstrate to you that it's working. So I'm going to refresh here. This Prisma Studio, there we go, no messages inside. Let's just wait a second for it to load, no messages. But if I go ahead and well, you know what, let's do this. Let's actually go back and let's find our onSubmit function, and instead of using onClose, let's use handleClose. So this is going to reset our form as well, like that. So we have handleClose reset written here. Perfect. Okay, let's try again. So I'm gonna go ahead and upload my profile picture from YouTube. I'm gonna go ahead and click send like this. And let's go ahead and refresh this. And in a couple of seconds, there we go. So now you can see the file URL right here. Perfect. And one thing I wanna bring your attention to is that we currently don't have a way to display PDF files. So I'm gonna upload a PDF file in here, and you're gonna see that nothing is happening. We successfully uploaded it, but nothing is happening. So what we have to do is we have to go back to our file upload component. So I'm gonna close everything. I'm gonna go inside of components, inside of file-upload right here. And we have a solution for rendering images, right? But we don't have a solution for rendering PDF files. So go below this if clause right here. And let's go ahead and render if there is a value and if file type is equal to PDF. In that case, return a div. And let's go ahead and let's give this div a class name of relative flex items-center p-2 margin top-2 like this, rounded-md bg-background/10 like that. Inside, render a file icon from Lucid React. So make sure you have file icon imported from Lucid React like this. Let's give this file icon a class name of h-10 w-10 pill-indigo-200 stroke-indigo-400 like that. And inside, add an href like this. And the href is going to point to value like that. Okay, let's give it a target of _blank so it opens in a new file. And let's give it a rel of no opener like this, no referrer like that. And let's give it a class name of ml-2 text-sm like this. So you can already see some progress here. Text-indigo-500 dark text-indigo text dash indigo 400, whoops, and hover underline like this, okay? And inside, we're going to render the value like this. There we go, perfect. And we also have to add a delete button. So I'm just gonna copy this button from my if clause to render the image, and I'm gonna paste it below this href here, like that. And let's just modify it a little bit. So I'm going to use minus top 2, and I'm going to use minus right 2, like this, to position it just a little bit better. So let's take a look at this now, and there we go. So now you can click to open this file, and you can also remove it like that. So perfect. Now I can add a PDF file, for example, and I can upload that as well safely. And let's click send like that. And in my Prisma Studio, I should have a new message now, which successfully has my PDF file. Perfect. So you have finished the file upload configuration. Now we just have to do the little emoji thing. Great job so far. So let's go ahead and let's create this emoji pop-up right here. So first thing we have to do is we have to add a popover from Chat.cn UI. So let's go ahead and let's find the popover component right here. Let's go ahead and copy the installation. And let's go ahead and install it in our terminal. So I'm going inside of my terminal here, and I'm going to shut down the Prisma Studio. I'm going to shut down my application, and there we go. And npx Chat.cn UI latest add popover like this. Confirm the installation by pressing Y, and after that is done, we're gonna have to install our emoji package. So go ahead and run the following: npm install emoji-mart at emoji-mart/data and at emoji-mart/react. So let me zoom out so you can see it in one line. npm install emoji-mart at emoji-mart data and at emoji-mart react, like that. And go ahead and press enter. And after all of this has been installed, go ahead and npm run dev your application again. Great. So let's go ahead and let's find where in our chat input we have this little message right here. So refresh your application, of course, and let's go inside of components, chat input right here. Let's find this smile icon and let's replace it with emoji picker like this. And don't import it from anywhere. So just save the file and you should get an error because we don't have this emoji picker anywhere. So now let's go ahead and let's create it. I'm going to close everything. I'm going inside of my components and create a new file, emoji-picker.tsx, like this. Perfect. And now let's just go ahead and mark this as use client like that. And let's export const emoji picker like that. And let's return a div saying emoji like that. Let's go back inside of our chat input, and now we can safely import the emoji picker from /emoji picker, and I'm going to replace that to /components like that. And the error should go away, and now we have a text saying emoji here. Great. So let's go back to the emoji picker component inside, and let's go ahead and write an interface. So interface emoji picker props is gonna have on change value, which is a string, and a void like that. So go ahead and extract the on change from here and map it to emoji picker props like this. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's import everything we need from the popover component. So import the following from /components/UI/popover, which we just added. So popover content, and popover trigger like this. Great. Instead of rendering a div, we're going to render a popover component like that, and go ahead and add popover trigger component. And inside, render a smile icon from Lucid React. So make sure to add this import. I'm gonna move it to the top like that. And let's go ahead and give this smile a class name of text-sync, and it is a self-closing tag. So let's just make sure we close it. So text-sync-500 on dark mode is going to be text-sync-400. On hover, it's going to use text-sync-600. On dark hover, it's going to use text-sync-300 like that, and it's going to have a transition class like this. There we go. So now we have our emoji icon back, and you can see how it has a nice hover effect. Perfect. Outside of the popover trigger, go ahead and add the popover content, which we have imported. And go ahead and give it a side of right, like that. Give it a side offset of 40. And let's just go ahead and render these underneath each other, like this. And let's go ahead and give it a class name of bg-transparent, like that. Border-none. Shadow-none, drop-shadow-none, and margin bottom of 16 like that. And inside, we are going to render a picker. From Emoji Mart React. So before we do that, let's actually import that here. So let's import directly picker from @emoji-mart/react. Let's import data from @emoji-mart/data like this. And let's also just prepare use theme from next/themes like that. We're going to use it in a moment. Great. Let's go back inside of the popover content and let's add our picker, which is a self-closing tag like that. And let's go ahead and let's give it the data of data. Let's give it an on emoji select like this to get an emoji, which is a type of string like this, and on change emoji.native. So this is actually not a string. Let's give it an any like that. So let me zoom out. So on emoji select like that, get this emoji object and call the onChange function with emoji.native, which holds the string like this. So let's save this and let's see if this is working right here. So once I click here, there we go. I have an emoji popping up. Perfect. But one thing that doesn't work is when I switch to light mode, it is still in dark mode. So let's go ahead and resolve that. So switch to light mode if you prefer, and go ahead and add a const resolved theme from use theme, which we imported just a moment ago. And now use this resolved theme and give it to this picker here. So theme is resolved theme like that. Perfect. And I'm just going to refresh. And now there we go. Now it's white. And if I go ahead in dark, now it's dark. Perfect. And I think that I'm seeing a little drop shadow here. So let me just see if I can resolve that. Yes, so I have a shadow-none instead of none as it should be, like that. And I think that's gonna resolve that little shadow. There we go, perfect. And all we have to do now is actually add some functionality, because right now when I select, I have an error. So let's go ahead and let's go back to our chat input component. So components chat input right here. And on this emoji picker, go ahead and give it an onChange like this. Get the emoji, which is a string like that, and do a field.onChange. So I'm just going to zoom out so you can see it in one line. Field.onChange, and go ahead and open backticks. Reuse the current field value, and then just render an emoji next to it like that. So emoji field onChange, what is the current value, and add a space and just an emoji like that. So let's go ahead and write test. Let's click here, let's click somewhere, and there we go. You can see that an emoji has appeared here. Perfect. And now I can send that message and it is going to have an emoji. Perfect. Great job. And while we are here, let's also reset this form once we send the message, because right now I submitted a message, but this stayed here. So let's just quickly go inside of our onSubmit function here, and after the Axios post, let's go ahead and let's do form.reset like that. And let's go ahead and let's add a router. So const router, use router from next/navigation. So make sure you add this import for next/navigation. I'm gonna move it to the top, and you can remove this import for smile. And what I'm going to do is also call router.refresh like this. Great. So now if I try and write a message, this is a message, and after I submit and it's successful, it's cleared. That's exactly what I want. Perfect. We are now ready to render our messages. So let's go ahead and let's finally render some messages, or at least prepare the chat messages component. So we have to go all the way back to our app folder, main, routes, servers, server ID, channels, channel ID page right here. And we can now remove this div which says future messages, and instead we can render the chat messages like this. If you save, you're of course going to get an error, so just make sure to refresh the page so you have this error visible. And now let's go inside of our components folder, inside of chat, and create a new file, chat-messages.tsx, like that. Let's go ahead and let's mark this as use client, and let's just do an export const chat messages like that, and return a div saying chat messages. There we go. Now go back inside of the channel page and just import that from add/components/chat/chat messages. So the same way we did for the chat header input, and now chat messages. And if you save, the error should go away. So let's go back inside of this component now, and let's write an interface that we need. So interface chat messages props. It's gonna have a name, which is a string. It's going to have a member, which is a type of member from @prisma/client. It's going to have a chat ID, which is a string. It's going to have API URL, which is also a string, a socket URL, which is a string, a socket query, which is going to be a record of string and string, like that. A param key, which can either be channel ID or conversation ID, like that, and param value, which is a string, and a type, which can be either channel or conversation. So we need all of this information to create a modular chat messages component, which can be reused both in one-on-one conversations and in channel conversations. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's extract all of those values here. So I'm going to go ahead and write name, member, chat ID, API URL, socket URL, socket query, param key, param value, and type, like this. And let's assign all of those to chat messages props like this, and you should have no errors. Perfect. Now let's go back to the page.tsx right here, and let's go ahead and give it all of those values. So member is going to be the current member, which we have. Name is going to be channel.name. Type is going to be channel, because we are in channel ID page. For the conversation, we're obviously going to change it to conversation. API URL is going to be /API/messages. So this is where we're going to fetch our messages from. And then socket URL is going to be /API/socket/messages. So this is going to be where we are triggering new messages. Great. And now socket query is going to be channel ID with channel.id and server ID with with channel.server ID, like that. Param key is going to be channel ID, like that, and param value is going to be channel.id, like this. Perfect. And let's just change, but after name, let's also add a chat ID to be channel.id, like that. There we go. So member, name, chat ID, type, API URL, socket URL, socket query, param key, and param value. And now you should have no errors here. Perfect. So let's go inside of chat messages now, and let's go ahead and let's give this div a class name of flex-1. So it takes up all of the space. flex-call, py-4, and overflow-y-auto, like that. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's replace this text chat messages with a self-closing div. So it's going to be a self-closing div with a class name of flex-1 like that. And then below that div, we're going to render chat welcome like this. We don't have that, so we're going to get an error. Chat welcome is going to have a type of type and the name of name like that. So let's go ahead and let's create the chat welcome now. So inside of chat components, create a chat-welcome.tsx. Let's go ahead and let's write export const chat welcome like this and return a div chat welcome like that. Go back to your chat messages and now you can import chat welcome from /chat welcome, and I'm just gonna keep it separated and no need to transform it in @/components because they are in the same folder. Great. And now let's assign these types inside of the new chat welcome component, which is right now right here at the bottom. Great. So let's go ahead and write an interface here. So interface chat welcome props like that are going to be name, which is a string, and type, which can either be a channel or a conversation like that. So even that is going to be dynamic. Now let's go ahead and extract both of those. So name and type. And let's map them to the props, chat welcome props like that. Perfect. And you should now no longer have these errors in the chat messages component. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's give this div a class name. So class name space -y -2 bx-4 and margin bottom -4. Let's remove this text now and let's write type is channel. In that case, go ahead and render a div with a class name of h-open square brackets 75 pixels, w-75 pixels as well, rounded -full, bg-sync-500. On dark mode, it's going to be bg-sync-700. It's going to be a flex, items-center, and justify-center as well. And inside, go ahead and render a hash from Lucid React. So make sure you have this import. And let's give this hash a class name of h-12, w-12, and text-white like that. There we go. So now you can see that we have a nice little hashtag here because this is a channel. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's go below that and let's add a paragraph here with the class name of text-xl, md, text-3xl, and font-bold like that. And inside, we're going to dynamically render using type equals channel. If that is the case, we're going to write welcome to and a hashtag. Otherwise, we are going to just not render anything, and then we're going to render the name. So this is going to say welcome to /general, but when we can go to one-on-one conversations, it's just going to say the name of the person we are speaking to. So no need to say welcome to that person's name, but if we are in the channel, we want that to appear. Perfect. And now let's go ahead below that and add another paragraph with the class name of text-sync-600, dark, text-sync-400, text-sm, like that. And inside, go ahead and let's dynamically render. So if type is channel, in that case, go ahead and render in backticks. This is the start of the hashtag, open a special object, name channel, like that. Otherwise, go ahead and render backticks again. This is the start of your conversation with the person we are speaking to. So just the name like that. There we go. So now this says welcome to general. This is the start of the general channel. If I switch to new text, it says new text, and new text here. But when we come to our members, we don't have that yet. But when we add it, it's going to say, this is the start of your conversation with Antonio. And it's just going to say Antonio here without this hashtag icon. Perfect. So we just created our chat welcome component. And now we can actually go back to our chat messages and we can start actually fetching the data. So let's go and let's install the TanStack React query package. So I'm going to go inside of my terminal and I'm going to write, let's just write npm install add TanStack /react-query like this. So install that package right here, and then make sure you do npm run dev again like this. Now let's close everything. Just to refresh your localhost, go inside of components, go inside of providers, and create a new file called query-provider.tsx like that. Go ahead and mark this as use client. Import query client and query client provider from @tanstack/react query and import use state from React. Go ahead and write export const query provider, which is going to accept the children. And let's go ahead and give these children a type of react.react node like that. Go ahead and return a query client provider like this and just render the children inside. Now let's go ahead and let's create a const query client is equal to use state, open an arrow function, new query client like this. So just that, we don't need the set query client. We can just work with this and pass in the client to be the query client like that. Perfect. So now that we have that, let's go inside of our app folder and find the global layout.tsx. And now we have to go inside of our socket provider and just wrap the children in the new query provider. So query provider from @/components/providers/query provider. So this component which we just created like that. Make sure you added the proper import from @/components providers query provider, so not from any package. Great, and now we are ready to create the use chat query hook. So let's go ahead and do that. Go inside of hooks and create a new file, use-chat-query.ts like that. Let's go ahead and let's import QS from query-string. Let's import use params from next/navigation, and let's import use infinite query from tanstack react query, and let's also add import use socket from @/components providers socket provider like that. Let's create an interface chat query props, which is going to accept the query key, which is a string. It's going to accept API URL, which is a string, param key, which can either be channel ID or conversation ID, depending on whether this is used inside of one-on-one conversation or a channel, and a param value, which is a string like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's write export const use chat query like that. Go ahead and add the query key, the API URL, the param key, and the param value like that, and just map them to chat query props like this. There we go. And let's go ahead and return this. And now let's extract the is connected from our socket. So const is connected from use socket like that, and const params is equal use params like this. And now let's go ahead and let's create a function to fetch our projects. So const fetch projects, my apologies, const fetch messages like that is asynchronous. Go ahead and open the object page param is going to be undefined. So this is gonna be a page param is gonna be our cursor for infinite loading, right? We're gonna have to modify the API for messages for that. So get this page param, and now let's generate the URL using QS. So const URL is equal to QS.stringify URL. Let's get the base URL, which is API URL prop. The query is going to be a cursor, which is page param, and open this kind of like an array, so square brackets, and write param key, which is going to be param value like that. So either a channel ID that we are querying the messages from, or the conversation ID that we are querying the messages from. So this way we can reuse this use chat query for both one-on-one conversation and for the channels. Great. And let's also add options here to skip null, true, like this. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and write const response is await fetch URL and return response.json like that. Perfect. So now we have our const fetch messages function here. And now let's go ahead and let's actually write the query. So const data fetch next page has next page is fetching next page and status. All of that from use infinite query like this. And go ahead and give it a query key, which is going to be an array and query key inside. A query function, which is going to be fetch messages like that. And get next page param, which is going to take the last page and is going to return last page question mark dot next cursor. So make sure to put the question mark here because there is a possibility that the API fails and then the last page is not going to return this and your site will crash. And now we have something cool here called refetch interval. So we can do it every second by default. So this is what I was talking about. This is polling, right? So it's going to refetch all messages every second. Well, not all messages, but this specific page that we are on. So using this, you can actually enable some kind of real time for your users. This is what I was talking about. Even if your WebSocket is not working, you can still rely on this for a pretty good experience. But since we do have WebSockets, we're going to do a conditional if we are connected. So if our WebSocket is working, in that case, false. Otherwise, use the polling. So only if our WebSocket server fails, and instead of this saying live real-time updates, it says the polling issue, only then are we actually going to use the polling. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's just return all of that. So return data, fetch next page, has next page, is fetching next page, and status like that. Perfect. Great, and it seems like we actually don't need the params inside. Let's see. Yeah, let's actually remove the params. We don't need the params, and you can remove this import of params. My apologies. Great, and now let's go back to our chat messages. So components chat messages here, and we can add that chat query here. So let's go ahead and write const object is equal use chat query from add/hooks /use chat query like that. Go ahead and pass it the query key, which we have from our props, the API URL, the param key, and the param value like that. And let's go ahead and let's extract the data, the fetch next page function, the has next page function, a boolean, is fetching next page boolean, and the overall status like this. And let's just see, I have this query key which seems to be missing from here, so let me just see what is up with that. Okay, so the query key is something we can generate from here. So go above this and just write const query key, open backticks like this, and write chat colon chat ID like that. That is going to be our query key. Perfect. And now that we have this, we can go ahead and render stuff according to this status right here. So I'm going to go ahead and write if status is loading. In that case, go ahead and return a div with the class name of flex-call flex-1 justify-center and items-center like that. And inside I'm going to render a loader2 from Lucid React. So make sure you add the loader2 from Lucid React and let me move it there, and let me separate this two as well. Okay, and let's give this loader2 a class name of h-7w-7 text-sync-500 animate-spin and my-4 like that. And below that, let's add a paragraph which is going to say loading messages 3 dots like that. And the class name is going to be text-extra small, text-sync-500 like that, and dark mode is going to use text-sync-400 like that. And there we go. You can see that now it's infinitely loading our messages. That's because we actually don't have this API URL created yet. Perfect. So now you can go ahead and copy this entire status loading and paste it below. If status is equal to error, in that case, we are not going to show this. We're going to show the server crash from Lucid React. So make sure you have that imported. And let's remove the animate spin class because we don't want our error to be spinning, right? And let's just write something went wrong like that. Perfect. And now let's just see, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get this error right now because our API route doesn't exist. There we go. So now it said, for a brief second, it was shown an error and it said something went wrong. Perfect. So what I want to do now is actually create that API route. So let's go inside of our app folder, make sure you save all of these files inside of the app folder API and create a new folder called messages like that. And inside, create a new file, route.ts. So yes, this is still inside of the app folder because this is only for fetching the messages. We can do that inside of app router. Great, let's go ahead and let's write an export asynchronous function get, which has a request, which is a type of request like this. Let's go ahead and open a try and catch block. Let's resolve the error. And inside of this error, let's go ahead and write console log messages error. Sorry, messages get like that and pass in the error. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's your error message, right? Whatever it's easier for you to find in the terminal and return new next response from next server internal error with a status of 500. Like that. Perfect. And now let's go back inside of our try block and let's get the current profile. So profile is await current profile. So not current profile pages, but current profile, the old one, the old reliable one. Great. And now let's also import DB while we are here. So our database util. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's get the search params. So const search params are equal new URL request.url like that. Let's get the cursor. So const cursor is equal to search params.get cursor. Const channel ID is equal to search params.get channel ID like that. So cursor is going to be used to tell the infinite load from what message to load the next batch of messages. So there are many types of querying and pagination and loading. You can use the takes and skip method, or you can use the cursor method, for example. And for infinite loading, cursor, I think, is the preferred method, and it makes way more sense to me. Great. So now if there is no profile, let's go ahead and return new next response. Unauthorized with a status of 401 like that. Great. And now let's copy and paste this. And if there is no channel ID, in that case, next response is channel ID missing with a status of 400 like that. Let me just expand my screen a bit. Okay. And now let's go ahead and let's create. So below this channel ID, let messages to be a type of message from @prisma/client like this. Let's move it to the top and let's give it a default value. Sorry, message an array and a default value of an array like that. If we have a cursor, that means that we can query from that cursor. So messages is going to be await db.message.findMany like that. And now we have to define our message batch. So you can do whatever you want here. I'm going to create a constant here called const messages_batch. So by default, I'm going to fetch 10 by 10. So my infinite load is going to work 10 messages, then I'm going to scroll to the top, another 10 messages, then another 10 messages. You can define this to 50 if you want to, or 100, right? But for this tutorial, I'm going to use 10, right? So we see that effect. Great. So now that we have that, if we have that cursor, let's write the following. We're going to take messages batch. So we're going to take those 10. We're going to skip 1 because we don't want it to repeat the certain message that the cursor is at. Let's add the cursor. So this is built in Prisma. ID is going to be that cursor. So we are going to start from that message that we passed from the infinite query on the front end, where channel ID is channel ID, or you can use the shorthand like that. So that's the param key that we are using from that use chat query, and the channel ID value is the param value. And let's include member of each of that message, and let's also include profile of each of that member, so we can properly render that message. Great. And last thing, let's order by created at descending, like that, because we are going to do an infinite query. Means that we are going to do reverse messages. Great. That's if we have a cursor. But if we don't, so else, in that case, we're going to go ahead and write messages are equal to await db.message.findMany again, take messages batch like that, where channel ID is equal to channel ID, and we are going to include the member. So no need to do the cursor thing. So member include profile true like this, and let's also order by created at, which is going to be descending because we are doing a reverse loading of messages in an infinite load. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let's add let next cursor is going to be null like that. If messages that we managed to load, so if messages.length is equal to messages batch like that, in that case, next cursor is going to be messages batch. So the last one from the batch minus 1.id. So we're going to create the next cursor for the next infinite load using the information of the currently fetched messages. So if the length of the new messages is 10, then we can pick the last one and get the ID. But if it happens that the messages length is lower than the messages batch, that means we've reached the end of our infinite load and no need to change the next cursor. And that's going to tell the 10-stack React query that we've reached the end and there is no next page. Great. And let's go ahead and let's return a next response.json like this. Items are going to be our messages, and next cursor is going to be the next cursor like this. Perfect. So now we have that. And I think you can already try and refresh here. And now there we go. No more errors, it seems. So let's go back to our chat messages now. So components chat messages component. And what I want to do now is I actually want to show you like a very quick way to render these messages right here. So below the chat welcome, go ahead and create a new div. This div is going to have a class name of flex-call-reverse. So this is very important. It needs to be in a reverse order, and margin top-auto like that. And inside, we're going to render the data that comes from our use chat query, like right here, which uses the infinite query inside. So we are going to write data ?.pages ?.map like that. We're going to get the first group of messages. Let's also get their index. Go ahead and open this. We're going to render a fragment from React. So make sure you import the fragment. So we have to import the fragment. I'm just going to move it to the top like this. We have to import it in this way because we're going to give it a key. So give this fragment a key of ID like that. Sorry, a key of I. My apologies, like that. And inside, we're going to render group. So this group that we have .items.map like that. And this one is going to have a message. And this message type is going to be a message with member with profile. So let's just quickly create that type. So I'm going to go to the top and I'm going to write type message with member with profile like that. So that's going to be a message from Prisma client. Make sure you add that message from the Prisma client here. Extend it by adding and member, which is going to be a member from Prisma client. We already have that. And a profile is going to be a profile from Prisma client. So I have member, message, and profile from @Prisma /client. So make sure to create this new type, and then we can go back inside of iterating our group items here, and we can assign that to this message right here. And let's go ahead now that we have that, and we can now safely go ahead and return a div, and inside I'm gonna go and render message.content like that. And let's give this a key of message.id like this. And there we go. We can finally see our messages now. So I'm going to go ahead and write new message here. And it's not going to be immediately transmitted here because we have not set up our socket on the front end, right? So right now we still have to refresh. But when I refresh right here, there we go. It says new message right here. And if you go to another channel, you can see that this is completely empty. So this is a new channel, right? Which means that when I refresh here, only then are we gonna see that. Perfect. So we are now ready to go ahead and style these messages. And after that is done, we're going to enable the socket IO on the front end. So it's real time. After that is done, we are also going to add another hook, which is going to control the scrolling of our application. So when we get a new message, we want to get scrolled down. But when we scroll up purposely to load new messages, we don't want to get interrupted by that. So we are also going to do that. Great job. So we're finally seeing some messages, and now we're going to build a message item component. So let's go ahead and let's style each of these messages right here. So instead of using this div right here, we are going to render a chat item like this. And when you save this, you should get an error because we don't have that component. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of components, chat, and create a new file, chat-item.tsx like this. Let's mark this as use client, and let's export const chat item like that, and return a div saying chat item like that. Go back into the chat messages, and now you can import chat item from /chat item. So the same way we did with welcome. Great. And now you should have a repeating chat item for as many times as messages you have in your database. So what I want to do is create an interface for the chat item props. So let's go inside of the chat item and let's create an interface chat item props like that. Let's give it an ID of string, a content of string, a member of type member from Prisma client. So make sure you import that. And each member is going to have a profile of type profile from Prisma client as well. We're going to have a timestamp, which is going to be a string, a file URL, which is going to be either a string or a null like this. We're going to have a deleted prop, which is going to be a boolean, a current member prop, which is going to be a member from Prisma client. So we already have it, no need to import it twice. All right. We have the current member, and we're also going to have the is updated prop to be boolean like that. And the socket URL is going to be string like this. And socket query is going to be a record of string and string like that. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's assign those props. So I'm going to immediately assign the chat item props like that. And now let's go ahead and let's add all of those. So we are going to have an ID. We're going to have a content, member, timestamp like this. Let me just scroll a bit so you can see. We're going to have timestamp, file URL like this, deleted like that, current member like that, is updated, socket URL, and socket query like this. Great. Now let's go back inside of the chat messages and let's go ahead and assign all of those props here. So go to the chat item here in the chat messages component, and let's start by giving it a current member of member. Let's also give it a key of message.id like that. Let's give it an ID of message.id while we are here. Okay, let's give it content of message.content. So let's just not misspell content like I did here. All right. Let's go ahead and let's write file URL to be message.file URL like that. deleted is going to be message.deleted. All right. Timestamp is going to be format. So we have to add a format from date.fns. So let's quickly go inside of our terminal. I'm going to shut down my application and let's write npm install date-fns like this. And we can immediately do npm run dev on our application. Now let's go ahead to the top and let's import format, from date-fns, and let's create a constant to define the date format. So const date underscore format is going to be d mmm yyyy, another y like that, hh capital, and like this. Great, so just do it exactly like that. And now let's go all the way back to rendering of our chat item. Use format like that, new date message.created at, and use the date format like that. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and add the isUpdated prop. We're going to do that by comparing the message.isUpdated, updated at is not equal to message.created at. So if they are not equal, obviously it was updated. And let's add the socket URL, which is going to be socket URL from the props we have, and socket query to be socket query from the URL that we have. Great. And now let's also alongside member give it alongside current member, let's also give it a member. And for that, we're going to do message.member like this. Great. So make sure you have all of the props needed like this, so you don't get any errors inside. Perfect. Now let's go back inside of the chat item component. And what we can do is we can already start rendering it. So let's go ahead and let's give this div a class name of relative group flex items dash center on hover bg dash black slash 5 like that, p dash 4 transition, and w dash full like this. Okay, and let me just refresh this so I know it's up to date. All right, now inside of that, let's go ahead and let's create another div with the class name of group flex gap dash x dash 2 items dash start and w dash full like this. Okay, and now here create another div with the class name of cursor dash pointer hover drop dash shadow dash md and transition like that. Great. And inside we're gonna go ahead and render the user avatar of the person who sent this message. So import user avatar from /user avatar or /components user avatar like that. And I'm just going to separate the two. And let's give this a source of member.profile.image URL like that. So don't use the current member, instead use the member, so the person who sent the message. And now you can see my messages here. Great. Now let's go ahead outside of this div holding the avatar like that, create a new div with the class name of flex-call and w-full, and inside create a new div with the class name of flex items-center and gap-x-2 like that, and inside one more div, class name flex items-center like that. And in here, we're going to create a paragraph, which is going to remember member.profile.name like that. And let's go ahead and give this a class name of font-semi-bold, text-sm, hover, underline like that, and cursor-pointer like that. There we go. Great. And now let's go below this paragraph and let's add an action tooltip from /action tooltip. So make sure you add /components like that. I mean, you don't have to. And inside, for now, I'm just going to render a paragraph which says a role. And let's go ahead and let's give this tooltip a label of member.role like that. So now, when you hover over my role, it's going to say admin like this. If the person who sent the message is actually an admin, right? If it's a moderator, it's going to say moderator. So now let's quickly replace this paragraph with an actual a proper component. So in order to do that, let's create a role icon map. So below the interface, outside of the chat item component, create a const role icon map, which is going to be, well, just an object. If we are a guest, in that case, null. If we are a, whoops, let's not use semicolons, but this. If we are a moderator, it's going to be, oops, shield check from Lucid React with a class name of W-4, W-4, so H-4, W-4, margin left to and text-indigo-500. Add a comma, copy and paste this. And this one is going to be admin. And instead of shield check, it's going to be shield alert from Lucid React. So make sure you have both shield check and shield alert from Lucid React. And I'm going to separate those two. And let's change this to rows like that for the admin. Great. And now that we have the role icon map, we can go all the way to the bottom and find this paragraph which says role inside of this action tooltip and actually render the role icon map with member.role like this. There we go. And now you can see next to my name that it says that I'm an admin. Perfect. So let me just zoom out just a bit here so it looks a bit better like that. Great. Now let's go outside of this div holding the action tooltip. Let's add a span, and inside we're going to render the timestamp like this. And let's just style it by giving it a class name of text.extra small, text-sync-500, and on dark mode, text-sync-400 like that. Great. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's go outside of this div right here, which holds the span. And what I want to do here now is just actually render the content for now. So let me just write content like this. There we go. So now you can see the content inside. Perfect. So before we continue, I actually want to create cases for rendering an image and a PDF, right? So let's go ahead and let's add some constants here. So I'm going to go all the way to the top to the chat item here before the return function. And let's go ahead and let's write const. So we're going to use a bunch of this constant is admin. That's going to be current member.role is equal to member role, which you can import from Prisma client. So make sure you imported member role from Prisma client. So if current member is admin like that, const is moderator is going to be current member.role equals member role.moderator like that. Const is owner. So if we are the owner of this message, then current member.id is going to be equal to the member ID of the message like that. Can delete message. So const can delete message is going to be if it's not already deleted, and open brackets like this, if we are an admin, or if we are a moderator, or if we are an owner like this. So that's the can delete message. Now const can edit message is going to be if it's not deleted like that, and if is owner. So only an owner can edit the message, right? Not even moderators or admins can do that. That's not the practice even neither Slack or Discord follow, right? So we're just following them. Great. And one more thing I want to add, I also want to make sure that it doesn't have a file URL. So we shouldn't enable editing for PDFs or messages or image messages. Now let's write const is loading to be form. Oops, we can't do that yet. So we're going to have a form later. Let's do is PDF. So file type. We don't have the file type yet. Okay, let's go ahead and let's just quickly create a file type above everything here. So const file type is equal file URL question mark dot split find the dot pop like that. And now we have the file type. So if file type is equal to PDF, and if we have the file URL like that, const is image is going to be if it's not PDF, and if we have a file URL. Great. So I just wanted to add a bunch of this constants here so that we can develop this easier. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's find where we rendered our content right here, right? So outside of here. And you can remove this content now. And let's do an isImage first. So if it is an image, let's go ahead and let's render an href like this. And let me just align this like that. So the href for this one is going to be the file URL. So when the person clicks on an image, it's going to get open for them. Perfect. Let's give it a target of _blank. Let's give it a rel. Is it a rel? Yes. No opener, no referrer. Like that. Okay. And let's give it a class name of relative aspect dash square like that. We're also going to have rounded dash MD, margin top of 2, overflow is going to be hidden. It's going to have a border. It's going to have a flex, items dash center, BG dash secondary like that, and H dash 48. And W-48 like this. So you can see that I sent one image message. So now I have this right here. So if you don't, just click on the plus icon and send a message as an image. So make sure that you do that so you can see what you're doing here. Great. And inside, I'm going to render an actual image from next/image. So make sure you have imported image from next/image. Let's go down to it here. Okay. Find this image. Let's go ahead and let's give the image a source of file URL. Let's give it an alt of content. Let's give it a fill and let's give it a class name of object-cover like this. There we go. Now you can see the image that I sent as a file here. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's do the same thing, but for the PDFs, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write is PDF from the constants we made above. Create a div with a class name here. So what you can actually do to save some time, we can go inside of our components and find the file upload here, right? Let me zoom out a bit and find this one. If value and file type is PDF, in that case, this is what we're going to have, but we're just going to remove this button, right? So I'm going to copy that. So make sure it's file and file type PDF. So just copy this. If you don't want to copy it, you can pause the video and see how it looks here, like that. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, let me see if I can expand my screen a bit more. I can, great. So let me just properly indent all of this now. So it's PDF, I'm just going to indent it like this. I have to add the file icon from Lucid React, so make sure you have the file icon added. Okay, the href in this case is going to be file URL like this. This can say the same, and instead of rendering any value, let's write PDF file so it looks nicer in a message. And we're not going to have this button at all, like this. There we go. Perfect. So let me just zoom out for you. If you're getting stuck here, this is how you can do it. So just this div with these classes, a file icon, which you have to import from Lucid, and an href. So I just copied it from file upload because it's exactly the same. So for us to save some time. Perfect. And you can see I have my PDF file here. So it's shown like this. And if I click on it, it's going to open. Perfect. And now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's just add some use state fields here. So I'm going to go back to the top right here. And let's add const is editing, set is editing to be use state from React. Default value is false. Const is deleting, set is deleting. Like that, use state false. And make sure you have use state imported from React like this. Okay, now that we have those two, let's go back after this is PDF right here, and let's go ahead and render if let me zoom back in. Okay, so if there is no file URL and if we are not editing, in that case, go ahead and render a paragraph like that, and let's go ahead and just write the content inside like that. There we go. And now let's go ahead and give this a class name like that, which is going to be dynamic. So add cn from add/lib utils. So make sure you have this imported. Okay. In the first one, it's going to have text-sm, text-sync-600 like that. And on dark mode, it's going to have text-sync-300 like that. Great. Let's see if that is correct. Yes, it is. Okay. And if we are deleted, so if deleted, in that case, we're going to modify the style a bit by using italic, text-sync-500, and on dark mode, it's going to be text-sync-400, and it's going to be text-extra small, and margin top of 1 like that. So this is the entire dynamic class name for the content. So if it's deleted, we're going to make it italic, we're going to make it an even more muted color, we're gonna make the text even smaller, and we're just gonna add a bit of a space from the top. Perfect. So you're gonna see that this in action when we actually enable deleting of that. Perfect. And below this content, what I wanna do is I wanna write if is updated like this, and if it's not deleted, in that case, let's go and let's write a span element like this, and let's write just in parentheses edited like this. So a little indicator that this message has been edited. Let's give it a class name of text-10 pixels like that, mx-2, text-sync-500 like that, and on dark mode text-sync-400 like that. Perfect. So you can't really see neither the deleted or the edited, but when we add those actions, you're gonna see them working. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and find the end of this right here, find the end of this to divs like that, and go ahead and open a conditional can delete message like this. If we can delete message, go ahead and open a div like this with a class name of hidden, but on group hover, it's going to be flex items-center gap-x-2 like that, absolute p-1 top-2, sorry, minus top-2 like this, right-5 bg-white, but on dark bg is going to be sync 800 like this. We're gonna have a border and a rounded -sm like this. So let's see if you can already see that. There we go. When I hover on my message, since I am the owner of this message, you can see that a small little dot appears, right? So we're gonna turn this into our actions to edit and delete the message. Great, so now let's go inside of that. And inside, what I wanna do is first open another conditional, can edit message. So if I can edit message, only then am I going to render this action tooltip, which we already have, which is gonna have a label of edit, like that, and inside what I'm going to do is add an edit icon from Lucid React. So make sure you import that like this, edit file icon, shield alert, and shield check. Make sure you have all of those. Okay. And inside of this, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a class name of cursor -pointer ml-auto w-4 h-4 like that. I'm also gonna have it text-sync-500 hover text-sync-600 on dark on hover. It's gonna be text-sync-300 and transition like this. Great, so let's see now. You can see that now I have a nice little edit button here. So let me go ahead and expand this. You can see when I hover on my message, since I can edit it, I have a nice little button here, right? And let's go ahead and switch to light mode. There we go. You can see it looks nice even in light mode. Perfect. So let's go ahead and let's continue developing by adding the delete option. So this one is going to be very similar, but you can go ahead and copy this. Just place it outside of the can edit message conditional like this. And let me just align this indentation. Instead of edit, it's going to be delete. And instead of the edit, trash from Lucid React like that. There we go. So make sure you have imported the trash icon. And now let's see. And we should have, there we go. Now we have the delete function here, and in here we have both edit and delete. So you can see how for the PDF file, I'm not having the edit option. Same thing for the image, but for the text message, I can edit and delete it. Perfect. So we have now added that. What I want to do now is that when we click on edit, this turns into an input that we can modify and then send a request to the database. So let's go ahead and let's find this can edit message right here. And on this edit, on click, go ahead and call an arrow function, which calls set is editing to true like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's import everything we need from the form and everything we need from the other components. Great. So inside of right here, go ahead and import from add/components/UI/form like this. Import the form, form control, form field, and form item like that. Let's also go ahead and let's import everything as z from zod like that. And let's import axios from axios. Let's import QS from query-string because we're going to need both of those to create some requests. Let's import use form from React hook form like that. And let's import Zod resolver from add hook form/resolvers/Zod. Great. Now let's go ahead and create our form schema. So I'm going to go below the role icon map here and write const form schema is going to be z.object content z.string with a minimum value of 1. Whoops, like this. Great. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's create our form. So I'm going to go inside of my chat item here, and I'm going to go right here and write const form is equal use form right here. Let's go ahead and let's give it a type of z.info type of form schema like that. Let's add a resolver to be Zod resolver form schema. And let's go ahead and let's write default values, content to be content like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's write a quick use effect from React. So make sure you imported use effect from React. Let me just show you here. There we go. And in here, all I'm going to do is form.reset content to be content like that. And it's going to trigger on any content change. So this is going to make sense when we enable real-time message updating. When we receive new information here, let's immediately reset that form if the user tries to edit a message again, so that when we click is editing, we don't actually show the previous message. All right, and now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's import a couple of more components here. So I'm going to import input from /UI input, but I'm going to rename that to /components like that. And I'm also going to import button from /UI button, but I'm going to change it to this. Great. Now, what we have to do is we have to go and find where our general content rendering is. So this one, right? With is updated and not deleted, and this sign right here, and this conditional if it's not file URL, and if it's not is editing, then we render that. Great. So go just below that, and what you're gonna do here is write if there is no file URL and if is editing like that. In that case, let's go ahead and let's add our form element, which we imported. Let's pass in everything from the form inside, like that. Let's open the native form element like this. Let's give it an onSubmit. For now, form.handleSubmit. And let's create our onSubmit now. So I'm going to go to the top here, just above all of this stuff. So right here, const onSubmit is going to be just a very simple values. We're going to add the type later. So console log values like that. Okay. And let's use this onSubmit back here. So pass in that onSubmit. All right. And let's go ahead and let's give this form a class name, which is going to be flex items-center w-full gap-x-2 like that, and pt-2 like that. Great. Inside of the form, go ahead and render the single form field, which is a self-closing tag, and we already have it imported. The control is going to be form.control like that. Name is going to be content like this, and render is going to be a function which immediately destructures the field, and it returns a form item like that. Give the form item a class name of flex-1 like that. Inside, use the form control like that, and let's just fix the indentation. Okay, and inside create a div with a class name of relative and w-full like this. Great. And finally, let's add our input here. Let's give it a class name prop. So we're gonna add p-2 bg-sync-200/90. On dark mode, it's going to be bg-sync-700/75 like that. Border-none, border-0, focus-visible colon ring-0 like that. And let's also give it a focus-visible ring-offset-0 like that. Text-sync-600, and on dark mode, text-sync-200 like that. Great. And on the placeholder, we're gonna write edited message like that. And let's also go ahead and spread the field just like that. Perfect. So let's see if we can already see that. If I press on edit here, there we go. You can see how this turns into a nice input where I can write whatever I want. Great. And what I want to do now is just a button next to it, as well as a little text instructions on how to cancel if person accidentally clicked on that, right? So find the end of this form field right here, but still inside of this native HTML form element, and add the button which we imported and write save. Let's go ahead and let's give it a size of small and a variant, of primary like that. Great. And outside of the form, let's go ahead and let's create a span, which is going to say press escape to cancel like that, enter to save. And let's give it a class name of text dash open square brackets 10 pixels, so a very small text, margin top 1, and text dash sync dash 400 like that. Perfect. So let's try this out now. If I go and click edit on the message, there we go. I have the save button and I have the little span telling me press escape to cancel and enter to save. Perfect. So let's go ahead and let's trigger this escape to cancel functionality right here, right? I'm going to go all the way to the top and I'm going to create a new use effect here. So we can do it before anything here. Use effect, I mean, it doesn't matter. Let's go ahead now. Right here, and let's write const handle key down event. Let's give it the type of any for now. If event.key is equal to escape, like that, or event.keycode is equal to 27, set is editing is false like that. Perfect. And now let's add window.add event listener key down to be handle key down like that, and return window.remove event listener key down like that, handle key down, just like that. Perfect. And I'm just going to replace this with double quotes just to be consistent. And now if I try and like click on something and click escape, you can see how it immediately cancels that entire thing. Perfect. So what I want to do now is an actual on submit, that when I change something and save, I want it to be sent to the server. Perfect. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and create a proper on submit function. So let's find our on submit function right here. And let's go ahead and change these values to be a type of z.infer and pass in the form type of form schema like that. And let's make it an asynchronous function. Let's go ahead and let's open a try and catch block. And let's log the error like that. Perfect. Let's also extract const is loading from the form.formState.isSubmitting. And before we forget, let's use this is loading and find our form here. Let's give the disabled prop to the input if we are loading. And let's also give the disabled prop to the button if we are loading. Like this. Great. And now let's go back. Well, where am I? Okay. Let's go back inside of this onSubmit function here. What I want to do here is write const URL to be QS, which we have imported, stringify URL like that, and go ahead and write URL, open backticks, socket URL / ID like that. And the query is going to be socket query like that. Perfect. And now let's just write await axios.patch URL and values. Perfect. So now we have that, which means that if I go ahead and try, so I'm just going to zoom out a bit and open my inspect element here. And if I try editing a message, so try and edit any message you have. So edited message, I should get a 404 not found. Perfect. So that's exactly what I wanted. Let's go ahead and let's create that route now. So let's go ahead. I'm going to close this inspect elements and I'm just going to collapse everything here. Okay. And make sure you save all of those files. Go inside of your pages, go inside of your API socket right here. And let's go ahead and let's create a new folder called messages like this. Go inside of that folder and create a new file, message id.ts like that. And now what's going to happen is that we have this message.ts files and this messages folder. So what we have to do is drag and drop this messages.ts file into the folder like this, and just go ahead and rename it to index.ts, right? So that's going to hold the /messages. And just to confirm everything is still working, go ahead and try and create a new message. So new message like this. Let's see if it's going to work. Let's refresh, and I should have 2 new messages now. So there we go, new message 1, and this one sent right now. Great. So now let's go ahead inside of this newly created messages message id.ts right here. And let's go ahead and let's actually resolve updating and deleting our message. So export default asynchronous function handler like that. It's going to take the request, which is next API request from next, and a response, which is next API response server IO from our special types like that. And let's just separate the two. Perfect. Now inside, let's go ahead and first let's limit the route methods because we are doing this in the pages API. So if request.method is not delete like that, and if request.method is not equal to patch, in that case, return response.status 405.json with an error of method not allowed like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's open a try and catch block. Let's go ahead and let's console log the error, message ID like that, and an error like that. And let's just go ahead and return a 500 error, internal error. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's get our profile, but for the pages. So const profile is equal await current profile pages. So make sure you import that one and pass in the request. So make sure you have this import. Great. Let's go ahead and let's get the message ID, server ID, and channel ID. Whoops. From react.query like that. And let's extract the content from the request.body like that. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let's write if there is no profile. We can go ahead and just return 401 unauthorized. Great. Now let's go ahead and copy and paste this. If there is no server ID, we're going to say server ID missing with a status of 400. And let's go ahead and do that again, but for the channel ID, saying channel ID missing. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's attempt to fetch the server. So let's add our db util. So import db from /libdb. And let's write const server is equal to await db.server.find first, like that, where ID is server ID as string whoops, members, some profile ID, profile.id, like that. And let's include the members like that. Great. And you can just copy this one more time, paste it here. If there is no server, 404 with an error, server not found, like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's attempt to find the message, right? Sorry, the channel. So const channel is equal to await db.channel.find first, where ID is channel ID as string and server ID is server ID as string, like that. Great. And that's enough for the channel. And you can go ahead and copy and paste this and just slightly modify it. Instead of looking for the server, this one is for the channel, saying channel not found. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's attempt to get the individual member. So const member is equal to server.members.find, get the member, like that. And member.profile ID is matching the profile that we are in, .id, like that. If there is no member, you can go ahead and return another 404 error saying that member not found. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's find the message. So let message is equal to await db.message.find first, like that, where ID is message ID as string, channel ID is channel ID as string, and let's also include the member, and let's also include the member's profile by setting the profile to true, like that. Perfect. Now I'm just gonna copy this one more time, like that. And inside I'm gonna say if there is no message or if message has been deleted. In that case, let's go ahead and write a 404 message not found, right? Great. Now let's go ahead and let's create some constants here. So const is message owner, message.member ID is equal to the current member.id. Const is admin, member.role is equal to member role. Well, let's import that from @prisma/client. So don't forget to do this. And I'm just going to move it to the top like that. If member role.admin, like that. Const is moderator is member.role is equal to member role.moderator, like that. And const can modify is going to be is message owner or is admin or is moderator, like that. Great. And let's immediately do an error here if we cannot modify this message. So if can modify with an exclamation point at the beginning, it's going to be a 401 and we are unauthorized to do this action. Great. And now let's go ahead and write if the method is a deleting method. So if rec.method is delete, in that case, message is going to be await db.message. Let's just not misspell this. So message is going to be await db.message. Whoops. Dot update. Remember, we are doing a soft delete, right? So where ID is message ID as string, like that, and data, and now we're going to reset file URL, content, and we're going to change the deleted. So file URL is null. The content will change from this to this message has been deleted, like that, and deleted is going to become true. Perfect. And let's also, let's just not misspell this. So deleted, like that. And of course, let's include our member and let's include their profile, like that. Perfect. Great job. Now let's go ahead and we can copy this entire thing, right? So if request method delete, let's go ahead and copy that here and change this one. The request method is patch. So if we are updating, let's also do just one quick change here inside, right? If we are not the message owner, in that case, return response.status 401.json and an error unauthorized, right? So only the owner of the message can do this, right? And is message owner, like that. Even if a moderator or an admin tries, they can still not do that. So only the message owner can edit their own message, right? So db.message.update right here, this is correct. Instead, we're not gonna change file URL, we're not gonna change the content, we're gonna do the content change using that variable. So this is the same thing as writing content, which we extracted from the request body. And make sure to include the member and to include the profile. Perfect. And now go outside of this if clause and write const update key, backticks chat, channel ID like that, colon messages, colon update like that. And response, question mark socket, question mark server, question mark IO, whoops, server, question mark IO, question mark emit, update key, and the updated or the deleted message, and return response.status 200.json message like that. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's try this. So I'm going to refresh this and I'm going to open my inspect element here. So I'm just going to delete everything that comes here. I'm going to attempt to update this from test to this is an edited message. Let's click save and let's see if we're going to get any errors or if it's going to work. All right. Ignore this. This is because we don't have an appropriate connection from the front end yet. Okay, let's see. I didn't get any 404s. Let's see if I refresh. Will that say this is an edited message? And there we go. Look at it. It says this is an edited message. And look at the little edited sign right here. Great, great job. So it officially works. One more thing that I just want to do is after we finish updating this, so let me just close everything here and let's go back inside of the chat item. So go inside of components, chat item right here on submit. So after it successfully submits, do a form.reset and do set is editing back to false like that. Perfect. So now I'm going to try again. Let's do the latest one. I'm going to change this to this is a completely edited message. I'm going to save, and if it's successful, there we go. So I'm going to refresh this, and there we go, it's here. This is a completely edited message, so you can ignore that it disappeared. We're going to handle that using sockets and other things. Great, great job so far. So now we have to create the delete functionality. So let's go ahead and let's create the functionality that when we click on this delete trash icon, we actually have a model for that. So let's go ahead and let's head inside of our hooks, use model store right here. And we have to add what I'm pretty sure is the last model in this tutorial, which is going to be the delete message model. So add a pipe and delete message like this. And we don't have to add anything here. What we are going to use is the API URL and the query. Perfect. So let's go ahead and let's find something similar. So components, models right here. We have the delete channel model. So how about we use that? I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it and rename that to delete message model.tsx like this. Let's rename that file. Just make sure you are in the new one. So it's going to be delete message model and change the is model open to delete message like this. Great. And we're going to leave it for here for now. Let's go inside of components, models, providers, model provider right here, and just add the last one, delete message model like that, and make sure you've imported it. And as always, I'm going to change this to /components. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's head back into components, chat item right here. And I think I've prepared some is deleting here, but actually we're not gonna need it. So I got ahead of myself. So you can remove the is deleting here. And instead, what we are gonna add is our use model. So let's go ahead and add const on open from use model, which you can import from add/hooks use model store. So make sure you add this. There we go. Now let's go ahead and let's call this on open when we press on the trash icon. So let's go all the way down above everything, and there we go. So we have an on click for our editing, but for on our on trash, we're gonna have on click, which is going to call an arrow function, call the on open, call the delete message model, and the data is gonna be API URL, which is going to be a combination of our socket URL, so open backticks and write socket URL / ID like that. And we're gonna pass in the query, which is going to be the socket query like that. Perfect, so I think we can already try it out. If I click on a delete, it should open the delete channel. Perfect. So let's now keep it open and let's slowly modify it so it does what we want for the delete message. Let's go inside of the components, models, delete message model right here. And first things first, let's just rename it. So instead of the title delete channel, it's going to be delete message. The are you sure you want to do this can stay, and we're just going to modify this. Well, nothing special. After the break, we're just gonna write the message will be permanently deleted like that. There we go. Everything else, in my opinion, can stay exactly as it is, but we just have to modify the onClick function. Before we do that, let's go ahead and let's extract something from our use model data here. So we are no longer working with the server and the channel. Instead, we are working with API URL and the query like that. So then we can go ahead and remove everything inside of this URL. Inside of this stringify URL options, and let's change them to use the URL, which is API URL, which we destructured from the data, which comes from the use model. And whoops, I scrolled a bit too far. And let's just add a pipe empty string. And let's pass in the query like that. And then we have the await Axios delete URL. After that, we have the on close like that. And there is pretty much nothing else we have to do. So we can completely remove those two. And let's see if that prompts us to remove anything else. Yes, we don't need this, so we can remove that. And that means we can also remove the import for that right here. Great. And I'm pretty sure that this should already be working. That's because this API URL, which comes from our chat item. So let's see how we define that. We call the socket URL /ID. Let's check out our channel page. So channel ID page to see what that is. So our API URL, our socket URL is /API/socket/messages, and we have the channel ID and the server ID. And we combined the socket URL with the ID of that chat. So it's going to be /API/socket/messages, that message ID. And then that is going to go inside of our pages folder, API socket messages message ID. And if you remember, we created both the patch function and we also handled the delete function because they are very similar. So let's see if we are courageous enough to do this. I'm just going to click confirm. I don't even know what message I selected, but since it's loading thus far, there we go. It says this message has been deleted. So you might be wondering how come this was in real time. Well, that's because remember, we have a 10-stack React query, which falls back to polling if our WebSocket fails. For a split second, it failed, and then it updated my message with polling. Perfect. So this means that we have officially finished deleting messages. So let's try the latest one. I'm going to delete the latest message. I'm going to click confirm. Okay. And I'm going to refresh. And there we go. This message has been deleted and I can no longer do any actions on it. Perfect. Amazing, amazing job. What we are going to do now is we're going to add a hook, which is going to connect to the socket IO and watch for all of these events. So take a look at the events we need to handle. Inside of this folder, API socket, we have to watch for when we receive a new message using this channel key. So chat channel ID messages. So we have to watch for that. And we have to watch for individual updating of a message. So either delete or edit. Both of them are going to use the same key because it's technically updating both of them. Perfect. So we are going to do that next. So one thing I want to do before we get onto the socket thing, I wanted to that when I click on a specific name from my message or their avatar, I want to get redirected to that member. So let's go ahead and let's go back inside of our components, inside of the chat, and go ahead and find the chat item component right here. what I want you to do is to import two packages. So, sorry, two items. So use router and use params from next/navigation like that. And then what I want you to do is go ahead inside of your chat item component and just create a new function, const on member click, like this. And let's go ahead and check if member has clicked on themselves. So if member.id is equal, and let's just do a proper arrow function. So if member, is this correct? Member.id is equal to current member.id. In that case, we can just return and break the function. Otherwise, let's go ahead and let's add the params, use params outside, const router is equal to use router. So we have both of those imported. And now let's use them here by saying router.push, open backticks, /servers, /params, !server ID, /conversations, /member.id, like this. There we go. And now let's go ahead and let's use this on member click in two places. So the first one is going to be in this div right here, which holds our avatar. So when I click on here, on click, I want to call the on member click. And I want the same thing to happen when I click on this paragraph, which holds the member profile name, like this. Great. So now if you go ahead and let's refresh this, and let's try if I go and click. So I sent some messages from another user here, and I suggest that you do that. So log out and just log back in and just send some messages so your chat has some content. And I'm gonna click here, and all right, I made a mistake here. So let's see what exactly went wrong here. All right, so the mistake is inside of my own member click function. Let's go ahead and find it. So it should be /servers, not /server, like that. So let's now go back and let's see if that will fix it. So if I click on another user here, I should get redirected to our one-on-one conversation. There we go. So just like that. And if I try and click on myself, nothing should happen. Perfect. Now what I want to do is something that I've just noticed now is happening, and I thought we were going to resolve it later, is this error that we have right here regarding WebSockets. So it says that there is a WebSocket breaking here, right? And I've managed to debug where it's happening. So if you take a look at the terminal, so if you don't have that, okay, if you don't have an error, you can just continue. But I have this very specific error that ends with UND error invalid argument. Right? It's very specific, and I couldn't really figure out why it's happening. And then I figured it out. So we're going to do step by step if you're having this exact error. So if you're not having this error in the console, right? You can also test by sending a message. So I'm just going to send a random message like this. And you can see that when I send a message, for a brief second, I get another error. So if that's not happening to you, that means your WebSocket is working correctly. It looks like between the time that I finished my clone and between right now where I'm developing this, Next13 made an upgrade which broke my implementation for some reason. But don't worry, even if we don't implement WebSockets, we can always just ignore them and add polling. So first things first, I'm going to show you how to do that, and then we're going to fix the sockets by downgrading. I'm going to show you how to do that. So how to do it with a React query. Go inside of hooks right here, go inside of use chat query, and what you can do here is just hard code this to 1000, the refetch interval. Right? So every second you're going to refetch. And let me show you right now how that is going to look like. So I think you can already go ahead and say, okay, this is a new message. And once this is submitted, after a second, there we go. A new message is here. Let's try and edit this. So I'm going to say this is a edited message. Let's save this. And again, after a second, it says this is an edited message. Let's try and delete it. And same thing, after a second, this message has been deleted. So you can see that this actually works pretty well, right? So even if you don't manage to fix this issue that I'm gonna show you how to fix now, you can always just do your refetch interval inside of your use chat query to a fixed every second polling. Great. Now turn it back to this. Is connected. We don't use polling, otherwise we do. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go inside of my next.config.js to fix this socket.io issue right here. And I'm gonna go inside and write webpack like this. And it's not really an object, it's a function. So get the config, go ahead and write config.externals.push and write utf-8-validate common.js utf-8-validate like that. And let's also write buffer util, okay, buffer util like this to be common.js buffer util like that. Okay, and before you start your application, what we are going to do is you are going to go inside of package.json and go ahead and find your next version. So my next version is 13.4.19 and this one seems to be problematic for some reason. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this version to next 13.4.12 right here. And I'm going to do the same thing for slint config next, just so they match my version. So slint config next to 13.4.12 and next to 13.4.12 right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut down my application and I'm going to run npm install like this. So I'm going to install all of my packages and that's going to pick up that newer version inside that I've just changed, right? If I knew this at the beginning, I would have told you to do the npx create next app using that version, but I did not expect this to happen. All right, and now let's do npm run dev, and you're gonna get a couple of these warnings. And yeah, okay, I forgot to do one thing, so we get an error here. Let's go back inside of next config here. And I forgot to return the config. So after you push something to it, go ahead and return the config like that. Great. And you don't have to change anything. So what we did in the package.json is fine. And let's try again after we added that. So npm install, I'm just going to do it just in case. Okay. And npm run dev again. Great. So I just did a small mistake in next config.json. I forgot to write return config. Great. Now that this is here, let's go ahead and refresh now, and it seems like we no longer have that weird error that I was showing you from before. Look at this, no errors, just compiling events. So it's definitely due to the next 13 version. And you can also take a look, and let's try and send a message now. So I'm just gonna write test socket trigger. Let's see if that's going to trigger a socket error. And it seems to not have triggered any error. So yes, it's not loading here in real time because we don't have that set up, but no errors. That's exactly what I wanted. Great. Let's go ahead now and let's create a hook, which is actually going to load these messages in real time using sockets in the next 13.4.12 version, because obviously the newer one is not working. I'm sorry for that, but I could not have known that would happen. Great. Let's go now inside of our hooks. And let's go ahead and create a new hook called use-chat-socket.ts like this. And let's go ahead and let's write type chat socket props like this. It's going to have an add key, which is a string, an update key, which is also a string, and it's going to have a query key, which is also going to be a string. Now let's go ahead and write export const use chat socket, and inside let's immediately destructure the add key, the update key, and the query key like that. And let's do chat socket props like that, and return an arrow function. Let's extract the socket from our provider using the use socket hook from the providers folder like that. So make sure you have this imported. Okay, and let's add the query client from use query client like this. Make sure you import that from 10stack query. All right. And now let's go ahead and let's open our use effect here. So use effect from React, make sure you add this import right here, and let me just move it with this one. And let's go ahead and let's just add an empty array here. And let's just quickly go and create one type that we're gonna need here. So type message with member with profile is gonna be a message which comes from @prisma/client. So make sure you import that. I'm just gonna move it here. So it's gonna be a message which has a member. So import member from Prisma client, and that member has a profile like this. There we go. So just make sure you have this 3 imported and you added this type. Perfect. So now let's go back inside of our use effect, and first one we're gonna do a check if there is no socket. So very quickly, if there is no socket, in that case we can just break the function, no need to go further. All right, and now let's create a socket method to update the message in real time, so either delete it or edit it. So socket on update key gives us a message, and that message is a type of message with member with profile, like that. And inside, we're gonna call the query client, and we're going to set query data inside the query key. We're gonna get the old data, which is a type of any, and we are gonna use that old data to iterate all the pages and find the matching message using the ID and replace it inside of that data. So first let's do a check if our old data is not enough to update. So if there is no old data at all, or if there are no old data.pages, or if old data.pages.length is equal to 0, we can just return old data like that. Perfect. Let's go ahead and write const new data to be old data.pages.map, get individual page, which is a type of any, and return spread the page inside. And now let's get the items to be page.items.map, get the individual item, which is message with member with profile, like that. And go ahead and write if item.id is equal to message.id, which we received from the socket. That means, okay, we found what message to replace, so return the new message from the socket instead. And for all others, leave them as it is. Perfect. So we finished that socket. Let's see where it ends. Okay, it ends right here. Perfect, but we are actually not done. We have to return this new data. So let's just go ahead and find the end of this new data block right here, and go ahead and write return, and just spread all the data inside, and pages is the new data like this. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's write another socket action, which is gonna watch for new messages. So socket.on add key message, a type of message with member with profile, like that. Query client.set query data using the query key, like this. Old data, which is a type of any. If there is no old data, or if we don't have old data.pages, or if old data.pages.length is equal to 0, in that case, return pages, open an array and a single object inside with items and that new message inside of an array. Great, go outside of this if clause and then const new data and spread old data.pages inside, like that. And then just focus on the first page. So new data 0 is equal to all the new data inside. So new data 0 items. And we are going to add inside of that, sorry, the items is an array like that. So add the new message to the top and spread new data dot items inside like that. Great. And then you can go ahead and just simply write return an object, old data, pages, new data, like that. Perfect. So just go ahead and close this stuff. Great. And then let's go ahead and let's just write a return function to call socket of add key and socket of update key, like that. Great. And let's pass in the query client in the dependencies array. Let's pass in the add key, the query, add key, the query key, socket, and the update key as well. There we go. Great. Now let's go back inside of our chat messages. So save this file. If you think you've made a mistake, you can always copy it from my GitHub. And let's go inside of the app folder. Inside of components, chat messages, and right below the use chat query, let's add the new use chat socket from /hooks use chat socket. So I imported that right here. Great. Let's go ahead now and let's add the necessary keys inside. So we need the query key, we need the add key, and we need the update key, like this. We don't have the add key and update key, so let's quickly create them at the top here. So const add key, open backticks, chat ID, like that, and messages, const update key, chat ID, and messages and update, like that. Right, and this needs to be the same as in your pages folder, socket folder, messages folder. So the index is for adding messages, so chat ID messages, and for deleting and updating, it's chat ID messages update. So just make sure those match. Chat ID messages for adding and chat ID messages update for updating. So let's go ahead and let's see if this will work in real time now. So I'm going to create a new channel, test socket, just so it's completely clear, right? So I don't have any other messages inside. I'm going inside of that newly created channel and I'll write, okay, test socket in real time. Let me just zoom in. And if I paste this, let's see if that is going to work. And there we go. It seems to work in real time. So it's definitely due to the Next 13 version. Again, I'm sorry because of that. Now let's go ahead and let's try and editing it. So edit in real time. Let's save the file. Let's see if our other hook is working. It does. Edit in real time is working. And let's try deleting in real time. So I'm going to confirm this message. And there we go. So it all works perfectly. So what did we do? How did we fix that little error we had with the WebSockets? Let's look at all of our changed files. So in the next config.js, well, this is useless. Okay, so in the next config.js, we added a webpack config fixing those errors in the console that we have, adding this to and returning the config. We forgot that, so we couldn't start our application. And one other important thing we did was inside of the package JSON. So we downgraded from Next 13.4.19 or whatever version your will be when you're watching this video, all the way to 13.4.12, right? But as I've mentioned, if you did not have any error in your version, I don't know what it might be when you're watching this video, it could be that they fixed the issue, and I'm sure they will. They're a great team and they always listen to their customers, but you know, we are all developers and sometimes we make mistakes, even in production. So we downgraded to this safe version, and then we finished our hook and we just tested every functionality and it seems to work. So great job. What we have to do now is we have to add functionalities for our scroll, right? And we also had to add a functionality that when we scroll up, it loads older messages. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. So now let's go ahead and let's wrap up our chat messages component by adding the scroll functionalities, right? Because right now there is no way for us to load new messages and we do batches of 10 messages. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of components, chat messages right here, and let's go ahead and let's add use ref from React. So alongside fragment, go ahead and add use ref and element ref. So those two right here. And now let's go ahead and below these keys, let's go ahead and let's add const chat ref to be use ref, give it the type of element ref, open pointy brackets and write a div like this, and a default value of null. And you can go ahead and copy that and do the same thing for bottom ref. So it's also going to be a div. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's assign this chat ref all the way here to this first div in the return function. So this main return function, not the error or the loading. So find the main return function and give the ref of chat ref to this one right here. Perfect. And go ahead all the way down, and before the end, add a new div, which is a self-closing tag, and give it a new ref, which is going to be bottom ref like this. Perfect. And before we create our use scroll hook, let's go ahead and let's just use some of these items which we got from the chat query. Fetch next page, has next page, and is fetching next page. So let's go ahead and let's render this conditionally. So if we don't have a next page, in that case only do you render this div class flex right here. In this case, go ahead and write has if we don't have next page. In that case only, also render the chat welcome like that. So we don't want always to have this chat welcome, right? We only want to have it if we are on the last page. And we know if we are on the last page, if there is nothing more to load. If we've come to the top, then we can display this space which pushes everything, right? See how it looks now? See? Because we have more than 10 messages here. So at the top, I'm not rendering that big space and the chat welcome. Only when I scroll up and load messages older than this, do I want to show that chat welcome screen, because it means, okay, we've come to the beginning of the conversation. Great. And now below this, let's go ahead and let's add a new condition, has next page. So if we have next page to load, let's go ahead and add a div here with the class name of flex justify-center. And let's go ahead and add a conditional is fetching next page. So if we are fetching the next page, we're going to add a little loader at the top. So loader to icon. I think we should already have that imported from Lucid React. Yes, we already used it. Great. Let's give it a class name of h-6 and w-6 text-sync-500 animate-spin and my-4. And now let's go ahead and do the other thing. If we don't, add a button which is going to say load previous messages like that. And let's go ahead and let's give this button a class name of text-sync-500 hover text-sync-600 dark text-sync-400 text-extra small my-4 dark hover text-sync-300 and transition like that. Great. So let's go ahead and let me refresh my application to see if everything is working all right. Okay, it seems like something has broken, but there we go. I just refreshed. And now you can see if you send more than 10 messages here, so go ahead and spam your chat and you should see this button to load previous messages, right? And now let's add an on click to that button. So add on click to call an arrow function fetch next page like that. Perfect. So now I think it should already work. If you try, it's loading and there we go. And now it loaded the welcome to general and everything else. And you can see in a completely smaller channel, we load the test socket right here. So we load the welcome screen at the beginning and this space. But if we send more than 10 messages, then we have this load previous messages button. And you can see I added a lot of messages here. So it took me 3 clicks in order to get to the top. Perfect. Now let's try to automate that by adding a chat scroll hook. So let's go ahead inside of our hooks and create a new file, use-chat-scroll.ts, like that. And let's go ahead and let's write a type. Let me zoom in. Chat scroll props is going to be chatref, which is react.ref object, HTML div element, like that. We're also going to have a bottom ref, like that. Should load more, which is a boolean, load more, which is going to be a function, and a count, which is going to be a number, like that. And now let's go ahead and export const use chat scroll, like that. Let's extract this. So chat ref, bottom ref, should load more, and count. And let's go ahead and let's assign those. So this should be a function. So go ahead and wrap this in parentheses, like that, and then assign chat scroll props, like that. There we go. And let's go ahead and add const hash initialized, set has initialized to be use state from React. So make sure you add that import and give it a default value of false. Let's also import use effect from React. So use effect and use state from React. And let's go ahead and open an arrow function here with an empty dependency array for now. And inside, let's get the top div. So const top div is equal to chatref dot current, like that. And then let's write the handle scroll. So const handle scroll, like this. Const scroll top is equal top div scroll top. If scroll top is 0 and should load more. So if we scrolled all the way to the top and there is more to load, let's go and immediately load more. So no need to, did I add the function? I didn't. I also have the function load more. I didn't add it here. So just add it to the props load more, like this. There we go. So if we manually scroll to the top, immediately scroll more. Perfect. And now let's just add that listener. So let's go ahead here and add top div dot add event listener, like that. Scroll handle scroll, like that. And let's do a return top div dot remove event listener scroll handle scroll, like that. Great. So that's for scrolling manually to the top. And let's give it a should load more dependency, load more, and chat ref dependency. And now let's create another use effect, which is going to get triggered when we get a new message. So we know to scroll to the bottom. Use effect again. And let's go ahead and get the bottom div. So const bottom div is equal to bottom ref dot current. Const top div is equal to chatref dot current. Const should auto scroll is going to be a function if we have not initialized, so if not hash initialized, and if we have a bottom div, set has initialized to true, and return true, like that. Otherwise, if we can't get the top div, so if there is no top div, go ahead and return false, like that. And now let's calculate the distance from the bottom. And if we are not too far from the bottom of the chat, then whenever we get a new message, we can scroll the user all the way down. But if the user forcefully goes up to load new messages, no point in scrolling the user down and interrupting their search. So const distance from bottom is top div dot scroll height minus top div dot scroll top minus top div dot client height, like that. And return distance from bottom is less or equal than 100, like that. And then let's go ahead and let's write. So let me just see if I finished this correctly. Okay, this can be indented. Can it? No. Okay, like this. And now let's write if should auto scroll and execute that function. Set timeout. like this, bottom ref dot current question mark scroll into view behavior smooth like that. And let's give the timeout 100 milliseconds. And let's add the bottom ref, the chat ref, count, and has initialized to this use effect. Great, so we have that now. Now let's go ahead, back inside of our chat messages, and below the use chat socket, add use chat scroll from /hooks use chat scroll. So we just created that hook, great. And go ahead and pass the chat ref, go ahead and pass the bottom ref, the load more, which is going to be fetch next page, which we have from this chat query here. Should load more is going to be if we are not fetching more, if we're not fetching the next page, and if we have the next page by turning this into a boolean using double exclamation points, has next page, and a count, which is going to just count the latest page. So data.pages, first one, dot items, dot length. And if we can't get any of that, default to 0 like this. So make sure to use these question marks just so they always trigger. So they don't accidentally break the app, sorry. Okay, now let's try. I'm gonna try and say new message, and I should automatically get scrolled down. There we go. You can see how my screen automatically scrolled down. And now I'm going to refresh here, and I'm going to try to load messages manually by scrolling up. So if I scroll up, there we go, it's loading. If I scroll a bit down and load more, it's loading newer. And I can do that all the way to the top. Perfect. So depending if user can manually scroll, we are going to trigger the auto scroll. And if a user for some reason cannot scroll, so let's test this in this one. I have a lot of messages here. So if for some reason user scrolls to the top and then it's stuck like this, they can always click manually to load previous messages. Great, so you completely wrapped up the chat messages component. What we have to do now is we have to enable them for the individual one-on-one member conversation, which is going to be easy because we have everything completed now. We just have to create the API routes for it, and then we're going to finish it up with live audio and video calls. So now let's go ahead and let's enable one-on-one conversation. So let's go back inside of our main folder, inside of routes, server ID, and instead of channels, go ahead to the individual member ID page right here. So far, we've only put the chat header, but now we can add the chat messages from /components chat messages, and we can add the chat input from /components chat input. So just make sure you have both of those, chat messages and chat inputs. I'm just gonna move this to the top. So chat header, chat messages, and chat input. Now let's go ahead and let's give them all appropriate props. So for the chat messages, let's give the member of current member like that. Let's give the name of other member.profile.name like that. Chat ID of conversation.id. Type of conversation. API URL to /API/direct/message-messages like this. Param key is going to be conversation ID. Param value is going to be conversation.id. Socket URL is going to be /API/socket/direct-messages like this. And socket query is going to be an object which takes in the conversation ID and which is type of conversation.id like this. Great. And now for the chat input, go ahead and give it a name of other member.profile.name like that. Let's go ahead and give it a type of conversation, API URL of /API/socket/direct-messages like that, and query of conversation ID, conversation.id like that. And if you save those, now you should also see messages here, but our request is going to fail. That's because we don't have this route /API/socket direct messages and /API/direct messages. You can see the error, something went wrong. So let's go ahead and implement those now. So first let's do the global /API/direct messages just to load the messages. Let's go ahead. Let's close everything. Let's go inside of the app folder, inside of the API folder, and create a new folder called direct-messages like that. And inside, you can just copy the route from messages because they're very similar. We're just going to have to change a couple of things inside. So everything says the same. Messages batch stay the same. We're doing the cursor, the channel ID, all of that is correct. But our let message array is not going to be message, but direct message from @prisma/client. So make sure to import that, and you can already remove the message from Prisma client. All right. And now, instead of looking at await db.message, we're looking at db.directMessage this time. And instead of using a channel ID here, we're going to have to use conversation ID. So instead of loading the channel, let's go ahead. Instead of loading the channel ID, we are loading the conversation ID. So change this param to be conversation ID, like that, and do the check for conversation ID, and conversation ID is missing. And then we can safely use the conversation ID right here. Perfect. Let's scroll down and let's do the same change. This one is going to be direct message like that, and this is going to be the conversation ID like that. Perfect. And everything else can stay the same, and let's just change this to direct messages get, so we know something goes wrong here. So why does this change to conversation ID? Well, because in our main folder, routes, conversations, member ID page, we set the param key to be conversation ID, and the socket query is conversation ID. So that's what we are working with here. So let's go ahead and refresh this now. And there we go, no more errors, but our chat is still not going to work. We have to fix that now. So now let's create that route that is going to allow us to create direct messages. So let's go ahead and close everything and go inside of the pages folder. And you can go inside of the socket folder and create a new folder, direct-messages like this. And inside you can copy the index.ts. So just paste it from messages like this. And now we are going to modify it to match the direct messages instead of just messages. So first thing that we are going to change is this request.query. We are not going to work with server ID and channel ID. Instead, we're just going to work with conversation ID like that, which means that we can only check this conversation ID, right conversation ID is missing, and remove the check for channel ID like that. And instead of looking for server here, we are going to look for the conversation. So you can go ahead here and remove this const server like that. And let's go ahead and we can actually also remove the channel. So all the way, so remove both the check for channel, remove the check for server, all of these things. So just leave the member after the content check right here. And we're gonna get our conversations from our members from the conversation. So let's go ahead now. And let's write const, let me zoom back in, conversation is equal to await db.conversation.find first, like that, where ID is conversation ID as string, like that, or open an array, member1 profile ID is equal to profile.id of the currently logged in user, so like that. Or the other option is that we are member2. So either member1 or member2 has to have our matching profile ID, which we get right here using the current profile pages, right? So after we get that, let's go ahead and add include. And let's go ahead and let's include the member1 and let's include their profile. So true. And you can go ahead and copy this and just rename this to member2 like this. Perfect. And now, before we do the members, let's do if there is no conversation. In that case, we can return this error 404 conversation not found, like this. Let me just expand my screen as much as I can. There we go. And now we're gonna use a different method to find the member. So we're gonna write conversation.member1.profileID is equal to current profile.id. If that is true, then we are member 1. So let's assign ourselves to conversation.member1. Otherwise, we are member 2. So conversation.member2, like that. Perfect. And we can leave this as it is. And instead of creating a message, we are right now creating a direct message, right? Which means we are no longer using the channel ID, but the conversation ID. Like that. And everything else is the same because those two models are very similar. And last thing we have to change is this channel key to use conversation ID instead. And let's just change this to direct messages post, like that. So let's go ahead now and let's try this. So I assume this is still not going to work real time, but after I refresh, I think the message should be visible. So this is a direct message. Let's go ahead. It seems like we've gotten an error here. It seems to be a 404 error. All right, let's go ahead and let's check out what that is. So we have /API socket direct messages here. And what I forgot was to add, so messages is spelled with 2 S's and I named my folder with 1 S. Messages, like that. Okay, let's try now. So this is a direct message. I'm going to press enter and there we go. Now it's disabled for a longer time here. And there we go. This is a direct message. Perfect. So you can see that, yeah, it actually works in real time because this one sends the proper REST socket server IO channel key, right? And we already have all of that set up. So you see how useful that was that we first finished the entire chat messages. Perfect. Again, if you're not using sockets, you should see your message anyway after 1 second because of that refresh interval that we have. Great. What's not working now is editing the messages and deleting them. So let's do that. So let's go back inside of our folder right here, and let's expand this a little bit, and you can just copy this message ID and paste it here in the direct messages. And let's go ahead and let's rename that to direct message ID, like this. Great. So go inside of that file right now and let's modify it so it fits the message ID and conversation structure. So we are no longer looking for message ID, server ID, and channel ID from the query. Instead, we are looking for direct message ID because that's what we named our file, direct message ID. And we are looking for the conversation ID because that is the param key that we are sending. The content stays the same, and we can just check for the conversation ID here and change this to conversation ID is missing, and go ahead and remove this check. No need for it. And now we can go ahead and remove this server and this channel. So just leave the member like we did in that previous one. And let's go ahead and let's find the conversation instead. So const conversation is equal, let me zoom in, is equal to await db.conversation.find first, like that, where ID is conversation ID as string, or open an array, member 1 profile ID is equal to current profile.id, or it's member 2. So the second item in array is member 2, like that. So we are either that one or the other one. After the where clause, let's add the include clause. So member 1 and their profile. And same thing for the member 2. So let's go ahead and add that. Member 2 profile. There we go. And now let's go ahead and let's copy this check for member and reuse it for the conversation. So if we didn't find the conversation, then just write conversation not found, like that. And now let's go ahead and modify how we find the member. So conversation.member1 .profile ID is equal to profile.id. In that case, we are conversation.member1. Otherwise, we are conversation.member2. Like that. This can stay the same. And now for the messages, let's go ahead and change this to let direct message await direct message that find first, where is going to use the direct message ID, and it's going to use the conversation ID like that, and the rest can stay the same. If there is no direct message, or if direct message has been deleted, in that case, message has not been found. Perfect. And let's change this to use direct message.member ID as well. The rest can stay the same. Now let's go in the delete method right here. So delete method is going to use the direct message constant and look for db.directMessage. ID is going to be direct message ID. And there we go. The rest can stay the same. And the same thing is going to be for the patch. So if we're going to change from message constant to direct message constant, await db.directMessage, and it's going to use the direct message ID like that. And inside of here, we're going to use conversation.id, and we're going to pass in the direct message here and the direct message to the JSON right here. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let's try that out now. So I'm going to refresh this. And let's try and edit these messages in real time. So edited direct message, and let's save it. Let's see if it works. There we go, in real time. And let's delete this one. Once I delete it, let's see, there we go, all in real time. Perfect. So you have completely finished all the messages. Now what we have to do is add the video and voice channels. So now let's go ahead and let's enable video chats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to visit livekit.io. So this is open source and has a very generous free tier, and you can also self-host it if you want to. So I think this is the absolute best option for real-time video, audio, and data. Let's go ahead and let's click on the cloud right here. Once you're in the cloud, go ahead and click Get Started for free and go ahead and create an account. Once you are inside, go ahead and accept terms of service just like this, and let's name the app. So I'm going to name it Discord-tutorial like that and continue. Let's wait a second for this to load and go ahead and just answer these questions right here. Great. Once you are in the cloud here, let's go ahead and let's prepare our .environment file so we can add the environment variables needed. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add livekit_API_key. I'm going to add livekit_API_secret and next _public_livekit_URL like that. And let's go ahead and fill each of those. So first thing we can already fill is the next public livekit URL. What you have to do is once you've logged in and you are inside of this dashboard, you can see this URL right here. So just click copy WebSocket URL at the top and go ahead and paste it here like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's go inside of settings here and go ahead and click on add a new key. Go ahead and give it a description. So I'm going to call it tutorial and click generate like that. And don't close this window. Copy the API key and paste it in livekit_API_key and copy the secret key and go ahead and paste that into livekit API secret like that. Great. So now that you have that, you can go and visit livekit documentation. So you can safely close this now. If you accidentally closed it before you were able to paste it, just click add a new key. Great. Now let's go ahead and click on the documentation button here and let's follow the documentation for next 13 right here. So let's first do the installation of livekit SDK right here. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to show you in my terminal how that looks. So let's go inside of the terminal here. I'm going to close my app and there we go. Let's just, okay. So it's this one. It's npm install livekit-server-sdk, livekit-client, and livekit/components-react, and livekit/components-styles like that. So let me zoom out so you can see this in one line if possible, like this. So or you can just copy it from their documentation, of course. Just select the npm. So it's step 1 under next 13 documentation. And go ahead and press enter and wait for all of those to install. Great. Once that has installed, let's go ahead and let's follow the step 2, which we already did. We added all of this API keys inside, so no need to do that. What we have to do now is create a token endpoint. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna go inside of my app, inside of my API folder. So let me just zoom in a bit, and I'm gonna create a new folder called LiveKit. So create a new folder inside of your app API called LiveKit, like that, and go ahead and add a new file, route.ts, inside, like that. And you can go ahead and copy this entire snippet and paste it here. I am of course gonna expand this, so if you don't want to copy from there, you can copy from mine right here. So there we go, pause the screen and you can copy this entire thing. But we do have to change a couple of stuff. So first things first, this is fine, but our API key, API secret are also fine, but the VS URL is not. Instead of this one, it's going to be next_public_livekit_URL, like that. Perfect. And everything else can stay the same. So why did this need a change? Well, because in our .environment file, as you can see, we're using the next public livekit URL. So just make sure all of those 3 keys match what you use here. So secret and API key, like that. Perfect. Now that this is done, we can create our component, which is going to join the actual video call. So let's go ahead and let's go inside of our components folder and create a new file called media-room.tsx, like that. Go ahead and mark this as use client, like that. Go ahead and import use effect and use state from React. Go ahead and import live kit room, video conference from @livekit / components - react, like that, and import @livekit / component styles, like this. Go ahead and import channel from Prisma client. Go ahead and import use user from clerk next.js. Go ahead and import loader2 from Lucid React, like that. Now let's create an interface, media room props, to have a chat ID, which is a string, a video, which is a boolean, and audio, which is a boolean as well. Great. Now let's write export const media room. And let's extract all of those, so chat ID, video, and audio, and let's map them to the props, media room props, like that. Perfect. So let's return this arrow function, and let's go ahead and let's get the user. So user from use user, which we imported from clerk, and let's create a state for token and set token from use state, like that. Now let's create a use effect here, which is going to call our newly created livekit route and append the token inside of this state. So if there is no user first name, or if there is no user last name, we can return the function. And now let's generate the name constant using backticks. So open an object, user.firstname, space, user.lastname, like that. So that's going to be written when you join the room. Now let's go ahead and add a self-executing function. So go ahead and open parentheses and write asynchronous function, like this. Go ahead and open a try and catch block. In the catch, we're just going to log the error, like that. And in the try block, write const response is equal to await fetch, open backticks, /API /livekit question mark room is equal to open a special object chat ID and username is equal to the name. So every channel is gonna be have its own chat ID, so that's why we are gonna be able to that easily generate unique video rooms for every channel and for every direct message. Great. Let's get the data. Const data is equal to await response.json, like that. Set token data.token, like that. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and give this dependency array a user question mark first name, user question mark last name, and chat ID like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and render if token is empty, which means we are still fetching the token. So let's return a div with a class name of flex-call, flex-1, justify-center, and items-center, like that. And inside add a loader2, which we imported, which is a self-closing tag, and give it a class name of h-7w-7, like that. Text-sync-500, animate-spin, and my-4, like that. And a paragraph which says loading with 3 dots, like that. And let's give the paragraph a class name of text-extra small, text-sync-500, and on dark mode, text-sync-400, like that. Great. And finally, if everything is working fine, return a live kit room, like that, which is a self-closing tag. My apologies, it's not a self-closing tag. So go ahead and render video conference inside, like that. Give it a data-lk-theme of default. Give it a server URL of process.environment.next_public_live-kit_URL. Make sure that matches your environment file. A token of token, a connect of true, a video of video, and audio of audio, like that. Perfect. And now we're ready to render this inside of channel ID page. So now let's go inside of our channel ID page, inside of app, main, routes, channels, channel ID right here. And let's dynamically render these messages and this chat input. So we're only going to render that if channel type is text. So go ahead and add a conditional channel.type is equal to channel type and import that from Prisma client. So make sure you add this import. I'm going to move it to the top. If it's equal to channel type.text, only then are we going to render a fragment like that, and go ahead and copy the chat messages and the chat input like that and paste it inside. There we go. And also just indent it so it looks nice. Great. And outside, go ahead and add if channel type is equal to channel type dot audio. In that case, we're going to render a media room like this. We're going to pass in the chat ID of channel.id and a video of false and an audio of true, like that. Great. And let's import media room from @/components media room. So let's not forget that. Okay. And let's copy and paste this and do the same thing for video, but this time video is going to be true, like that. Perfect. So let's try this out now. I'm going inside of my application here. Yeah, also make sure you run your application. So let me just go ahead and npm run dev. And let's go ahead now and let's go ahead and create a video channel. So I'm going to call this video-test and give it a type of video and click create right here. All right, and let's see if video test is working. All right, it seems to be loading. I'm going to wait a couple of seconds and then I'm going to check for errors. All right, so the reason we are stuck in infinite load is very simple. So we have to go inside of components, inside of the media room, and inside of this asynchronous function, I forgot to execute it. So go at the end of the brackets inside of the use effect of the asynchronous function and just execute it at the end like this. Let's go ahead and refresh this, and there we go. Now we can see a room being loaded here, and let's see if this is gonna go smoothly. There we go. You can see my name here. You can see that I'm talking, and you can finally see me. Perfect. And let's go ahead and try the audio room, and there we go. The camera is off here. Perfect. So now you can see me here on the camera. One thing that we have to do now is enable this for direct one-on-one communication with users. So now let's go ahead and let's create one of the last components inside of our components folder here. So go inside of the app folder, components, chat, and in here create a chat-video-button.tsx component Let's go ahead and mark this as use client like that. Let's go ahead and import QS from query-string like that. Let's import use path name from next navigation, use router, and use search params like that. Let's import video and video off from Lucid React. And let's import action tooltip from /action tooltip. And I'm just going to change that to /components like that. Perfect. And now let's export const chat video button like that. And let's go ahead and let's return an action tooltip. Give it a side of bottom like that. Label of tooltip label like that. And inside render a button with an icon like this. So let's go ahead and define this stuff now. So const icon is going to be is video. In that case, it's going to be video off. Otherwise, video like that. And const tooltip label is going to be is video and video call. Otherwise, start video call like that. Now let's get this. So const is video is equal to search params dot get video like that, and add a question mark between search params. And let's get the search params now. So const search params is equal to use search params like that. Const path name is equal to use path name. Const router is equal to use router like that. So add those three, great. And now you have the const video, great. You have the icon, rename this to capital icon so that you can render it, great. And let's go ahead and let's add an onClick function here. So const onClick, const URL is equal to QS.stringify URL. URL is going to be path name or an empty string like that. And query is going to be video is video undefined, otherwise true, and add an option to skip null true like that. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and let's edit this a little bit. So go ahead and give this icon a class name of h-6w-6 text-sync-500 dark text-sync-400, and go ahead and give this button an onClick like that, and a class name of hover-opacity-75 and transition and mr-4 like that. So now let's go ahead and save this file and go back inside of the chat header component and go all the way down where it says the socket indicator, and before the socket indicator add a type is equal to conversation. In that case, go ahead and add chat video button like that, and make sure you import it from .chat video button like that. There we go. And now if you go into inside one-on-one conversation inside of your chat header right here, you should see a video call button, and when you click on it, it should append a video true here. So let's go ahead and let's see why that is not working for me. So I'm just going to refresh. I'm going to click again. Okay, let's go ahead and debug that. So it's very simple. So I was in chat header, I got back to chat video button. It's because I don't use this URL. So let's go ahead and write router.push URL like that. And let's try now. If I click, let's refresh first. There we go. So when I click, you can see that video is appended in my URL. When I click, it's off. So now let's do the functionality which actually shows the media room. So let's go back inside of our member ID page. So I'm just gonna go and expand this and go inside of app, main, routes, conversation, member ID page. So let me just expand so you can see where that is. Go back to the props right here and add search params here, which are gonna have a video optional boolean like that. And go ahead and extract the search params from here as well. And now go back inside of the render function. And let's go ahead and leave the chat header, but let's keep this only if search params.video. So put exclamation point. So if there is no video in search params, only then go ahead and render a fragment with chat messages and chat input. So select two of these like that and paste them inside and just go ahead and indent those. Perfect. There we go. So that solves that now. And now let's go ahead above that and add a different query. So if search params.video is true, then go ahead and render the media room from components media room. So make sure you import the media room like I did here and give it a chat ID of conversation.id and video of true and audio of true like that. There we go. Let's go ahead and try. I'm going to refresh here. And once I click on the video call right here, you should be able to see me right here on the camera because we have a one-on-one conversation. Perfect. And if I end the video call, we are off. Great job. You finished the entire Discord clone. I'm not sure if I have time to show you the deployment. If not, I'm going to write in the comments how to do it, or I'm going to make an additional video. If I do, I'm going to recheck my total time and then I'm going to create another part. Nevertheless, thank you so much for watching this entire video, and I hope to see you in the next one if this is the end of the video. Thank you so much and great job. So it looks like I have some time to show you how to deploy after all. So let's go ahead and let's close everything. So I'm just going to zoom out. I'm going to close everything here. Go inside of your terminal right here. Shut down the application and do git add, git commit, final. Okay, so I already committed, but I just wanted to show you that you do this as well. And now let's go ahead and create our GitHub repository. Alright, so I opened a new repository template here inside of my account, and let's name this something like team-chat-tutorial like that. Let's make it private and click create repository. Go ahead and choose the second option, which is push an existing repository from the command line. And let's paste all of that here. So just make sure you did git add and git commit like that. And now go ahead and visit railway.com. So we cannot deploy to Vercel because Vercel is serverless and we're using WebSockets, meaning that WebSockets will not work there. So go ahead and create an account or log in. So you have a free tier which doesn't require a credit card. Go ahead and click on new project and click deploy from GitHub repo right here. And now you might have to click configure GitHub app if it's not loading your repositories. So I'm going to search for mine. What did I name it? Team chat. So find your repository which you just created here. And let's go ahead and let's add variables right here. So we have to add variables. Select that and go ahead and press on this little icon so we can add more of them at once. Actually, oh yeah, click on the raw editor right here. There we go, like that. And now let's go ahead and open your .environment file and copy everything that is inside and paste it right here like that. Perfect. And you can actually remove this huge comment from Prisma, so no need for that. So just leave the environment variables like that and go ahead and click update variables like that. And then you can go to your deployments and there we go, it's building. So let's just wait a couple of seconds to see if maybe we will have to rebuild. There we go. So mine automatically started. So let's wait until one of these finishes. Great. So my deployment was successful. And now what I have to do is click add a domain, right? So click on that build and click add a domain. And there we go. Now you have a domain here and you can go ahead and visit the page, so it's not going to be immediately visible. But one thing you can already do is click here and just copy that URL. And let's go ahead and let's go inside the variables right here. And remember, we have a variable inside of our socket IO. So let me just find the socket provider here. We have to add this next public site URL environment. So let's go ahead inside of the raw editor, inside of our variables. And at the end, add the next underscore public underscore site underscore URL to be this new domain that we have. Just remove the slash at the end. So don't just remove this slash like that and click update variables. Perfect. And that is going to schedule a redeploy. So just go back to your deployments and wait for a new one to appear. So I'm going to refresh and there we go. This one is building now. So let's wait for that to finish. Great, so now it redeployed because I added a new environment variable. Now I'm gonna go ahead and visit it again, and there we go, you can see my clerk login. So let me try and log in now. And there we go, I am in production with live real-time updates, which mean that my WebSocket server is working. And let's try real-time message on deployment, like that. So I just butchered that. And there we go, it works. I can also delete that message in real time. Beautiful. I can change to light mode. Let's go ahead and edit a message like that. And that is in real time as well. Great job, and thank you so much for watching this video. See you in the next one.